Okay, we finished the Maamar yesterday. Let's go to a new Maamar, short one. Also Chayei, page Yud Zayin, first column. Okay, the pasuk says, "Vayetzi Yitzchak l'suach basada." Yitzchak went out simply means to talk in the field, but the Gemara says he established mincha. The Vayez that to explain what this means in a Yesh Mishnah of Braisa. There's in Torah Sheba'al Peh we have what's called Mishnah, and that's Braisa. Mishnah is what Rabbi Nasi composed.
Are we finished with that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we finished that in Maamar. Mishnah is what Rabbi Nasi composed, and Braisa is the more or less, like he's going to explain, details of the Mishnah, but it wasn't put into the Mishnah. It was left outside of the Mishnah.
Because they didn't agree with it.
Not necessarily, no. Braisa Pirush Mishnah. Braisa usually explains the Mishnah in more details, ka Mishnah or Klal. Mishnah is the general rule, or Braisa Prat Shel Mishnah. And therefore Braisa explains more details that the Mishnah doesn't mention. Ve'im b'chlal el mashe b'frat. And the Klal, the rule, can only have what the detail has. So l'chayda a Braisa l'mata min a Mishnah. So if you learn it that way, simply, what's greater? Mishnah and then Braisa. Braisa is explaining the Mishnah, so Mishnah is holier, and then comes Braisa. He said that's l'chayda, Braisa is l'mata min ha-Mishnah, shenishtash l'yesel mata, comes lower down. Avol emesi, sha-Braisa gavayel yeser. Braisa is even higher than Mishnah. Why? The lower the thing, the higher it originates. Seif ma'aser machshava tchila. Okay, so he says like this: Hinei hatayr and nishtal shalamata afilu b'dvar sheker. Torah, when it comes down from heaven, down to earth, deals with earthly things. It even deals with liars, swindlers, thieves. This guy says I found it. This guy says I found it. They both couldn't have found it. You know, all these lies. This guy lies and this guy lies. You know, like in the Gemara, you're full of lies, right? This implies the Torah comes down so low, even to the realms of lying, thievery, and so on. He said, that aspect of Torah is even greater than other aspects. Okay? So he says, and contrary to public belief, that Braisa is lower than Mishnah, Braisa is higher than Mishnah. Contrary to public belief, that Torah lowers it so very low to the extent of liars and so on. The truth is that's the highest level of Torah. And he says, like if you have a tube, what you put in first comes out last. Like Rashi says in this week's Parsha, Yaakov and Esau. Just like a person who's the last and the lowest of all creatures, who mankind is greater than everything else, and everything was created for mankind. Therefore, a person is a microcosm of a world. The whole world is found in the person. To teach us, everything was created for him. This is the whole person. So he says, the Rebbe is saying like this: mankind is the lowest, the last, because it's the greatest. Braisa is lower than Mishnah because it's greater. Torah comes into low levels because it's even greater.
Rabbi, when the author means Braisa and Gemara, because you say the same thing about Gemara, and it's the details, and it's lower. And
Gemara is even higher than Braisa. But here he's not talking about Gemara, he's talking about the Mishnah and Braisa. Dinei v'zeh Maamar azal yafa shachas. Dinei b'oil mabot tzadikim yeshim neira mabot tzadikim sit, and they benefit from the Shechina. But what level do they get in Gan Eden? Like we learned, Ziv HaShechina, the ray of the Shechina, is oni achurayim, the external levels of Elokus. Because it says Kilei Yerani Adam v'chai. So what can a person see? Even in Shama Gan Eden, they can only see the ray of Hashem. They can't see the Risa Sachorai, which is a time of Shemasa Godam Bavidasi. This enjoyment a person gets in his through his Aveda or Bechina Sachurayim. Only the external level of Elokus, But the pneumius, the essence of Hashem is impossible to understand. Like the pasuk says, and the Medrash says, simply the pasuk says, a person cannot see me and live. The Medrash says no. Chai refers to Chayei HaKodesh, the Malachim. The Medrash says, the pasuk says, doesn't mean a person cannot see me and live. It means also, not only can a person not see me, even the Malachim can't see me, who are without a body in, Kedusha.
Also, you could say the only way you can see God is when you the physical being.
Correct. Correct. There's a Gan Magil, the Gan Eden. So therefore, the revelation Gan Eden is only Ziv Hod Levat, is only a ray of the Shechina. Therefore, we say Therefore, it says like this: enjoyment, reward, can only be the external level of godliness. Therefore, it says Tshuva Ma'asim Teva mean the action itself, no enjoyment, no reward, just the action is greater than Olam Haba. Why? The Seif Ma'asim Machshava Tchila, because action is the lowest. So therefore, through action, you reach the highest. V'zel Gam Kein Inyan Mishnah Braisa, that the Mishnah is the cloud, the general rule. K'mei Dalet Tzitzis Ma'akvis V'chein Sukkah Shigavaya. Okay, Marshal, the Mishnah says you must have all 4 tzitzis. If you have 3 of the tzitzis, you can't do anything with it. Or sukkah has to be a certain height, not more, not less. Okay, so he says you have explanations for all this. Like, why is the sukkah too high not good? Because the people should know that Hashem set us in the sukkah. If it's too high, you don't see it, the schach. You don't see it, so it's not, you won't know. But the Brais is the detail explaining the Mishnah. Like sukkah is ganvach verakvash. This is an acronym for different dinim of a sukkah. Shein tam ledavar v'nira b'chush shalom ma'alem yaseichol. Therefore, there's many dinim in Torah that are mamish illogical. Why? Because the truth is, because there is no reason that we know of. Because it's higher than our understanding. In the Mishnah, which is the general rule, there is no more details than the Braisa. There's no, in other words, Braisa, because it's saying the details, is actually greater than the Mishnah, which is just the general rule. So why didn't Hashem tell us the reason for all mitzvahs? Hashem should tell us the reason for all mitzvahs. Why doesn't he tell us the reason for all mitzvahs? He said, because because the reasons for the mitzvahs are too great for us to understand. But even the mitzvahs that he said the reason, it's still not the reason that we really understand it. Even the mitzvahs of mishpatim, it says all over the place. Chassidus elaborates a lot on it. Even the logical mitzvahs is not the reason that we think it is. It's much deeper than that. When a parent tells a child, for health reasons to do something, okay, like to wear a coat when it's cold, the kid thinks, okay, I shouldn't be cold. It's much deeper than that. It's not only you shouldn't be cold. There are things beyond, or you go to school to get good grades, It's much more than just getting good grades. It's to prepare you for life. So even the reason that we think we understand, that's why all mitzvahs are called chukim. Because even the mitzvahs we think we understand, it's just that Hashem allows a certain aspect of the mitzvah to be understood. But in essence, we don't understand it.
I didn't understand why mitzvahs are called chukim.
Because chukim means illogical. Even the illogical mitzvahs are illogical. Because what you have to understand, Hashem has a reason for it. You think we can understand Hashem's reason for something? That's the reward. It's not the reason of the mitzvah. 1 minute. What's Kabbalah Leman Yirbu Yemechem? Leman Yirchan Yemechem. What Shluch HaKein, send away the mother bird, have to do with living long? The Earth says that's the reward of the mitzvah. It's not the reason of the mitzvah. The Rambam says, Shechita, which is the most humane way of killing an animal. Yeah? The Rambam says, if the Torah was humane, the Torah wouldn't allow Shechita, period. Right? So obviously it's much more than to be more humane way of killing an animal. All these things.
So what is the reason to tell us
That the brain that God gave us,
it's good to ask questions. Why are we asking questions?
because Hashem wants us to understand, that's what I'm saying.
You just said we cannot understand.
Right.
We have to try.
No, on the ultimate level we can't understand. But Hashem says, I gave you a brain, officially, sometimes you wonder, the brain is the highest faculty of the person. Hashem says, if you just do everything blind faith and you don't understand it, then you're not using your head, you're not connecting your head to Hashem. So Hashem says, I want you to understand. At the same time, you have to understand that you don't understand.
But if you try to reason the
We
things
need the
that
coach
are not
here.
understood, then you may come to misunderstand it.
You need the coach.
Correct. A bunch of bored rabbis.
That's why we don't try to explain cooking.
No, you have to try to explain chukim also. There's reasons for chukim all over the place. But chukim basically are essentially above understanding. The Torah says try anyway to understand.
But you could misunderstand, like for example, the...
So when Hashem said Nasa Adam, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, how do you say Na, let us make man? Hashem says, Kseva reita litisita. Write it, and whoever wants to make a mistake, let them. Because the only way you come to understand something properly is when you make a mistake, the Gemara says.
Why is it so bad to say that Shluch HaKain is because Hashem has mercy?
Because if it was be merciful, he would tell you not to take it.
But I'm saying it's like...
The Gemara says you're not allowed to say this because of mercy.
Why is it so bad to say that?
Because that's not the reason.
It's not the ultimate reason, but it's like maybe a partial reason, like we said.
No, because like I said, then Hashem shouldn't allow shechit at all. Or you shouldn't send away he shouldn't let you take the eggs either. The babies. Forget, when you make mitzvahs only logical, then you lose the godliness of it. And then also the bigger problem is, when logic dictates you shouldn't do it, then you're not going to do it. Simple example is kibbut av v'em. Yeah? If parents gave up the kid for adoption, okay, and the adopted parents are raising the kid, correct? Now, according to, I'm not talking about whoever, according to Torah, who is the halachic parent of the child? The biological parent. Does the kid, when he finds out who his parents are, does he still have a mitzvah kibbut av v'em? Okay. Is there a mitzvah kibbut av v'em on the adopted parents? No. He has to be a mensch, they raised you. But there's no mitzvah kibbut av v'em. It's not your father and mother. According to Torah, adoption doesn't make you, maybe legally. According to Torah, adopted parents you have to respect. Out of the menschlichkeit, they raised you, they took care of you. But it's nothing to do with kibbut av v'em. So therefore, if you're talking about logic would say your adopted parents you have to honor. And your non-adopted parents that threw you out of the house for adoption, you don't have to respect. Hello? Sir, you asked the question. Okay. וזהו אין בכלל משהו שם במשנה בכלל. יוסף מהפרט הברייס. ומשן לנסגל לטיימה, is Yosef Gavaya, the fact that there is no reason is even a greater level, because time mitzvah is galu, but loss of love will be revealed. Rab Shimon, daughter's time of the Quran. The Gemara has it's a famous argument to Rab Shimon the Chachamim. Rab Shimon was always finding the reason for the pasuk. Daughter's time of the Quran. When the pasuk says something, Rab Shimon always tried to find the reason for it. So he says, what did he do? Because he understood this, that the pasuk says the reason, that's not the there's There's really a reason above logic, above our logic. Yeah? But again, there are mitzvahs that Hashem says, I'm giving you the ability to understand it, but we don't do it because Hashem understands it, and because we understand it. We discussed in the past that there's many reasons why the Aseret Dibris, 5 and 5, 5 bein Adam lachaver and 5 bein Adam lamokim. 5 between man and Hashem, 5 between man to man. Why did Hashem make the 10 Commandments 5 and 5? If you think about it, the Aseret Dibris, we learned this one, we learn Aseret Dibris, really are nothing special. Most of the Aseret Dibris, the Jews had to keep before Torah was given. Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Most of the Aseret Dibris are Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And the whole commotion about Torah, Hashem says, honor your father and mother, come on. Don't steal, don't murder, what, come on. That's Aseret. I need the whole commotion of Matan Torah. But the answer is, Hashem says, basically, you should know that in order to be complete between Hashem and man, you need to be complete between Hashem and Hashem, between man and Hashem. In order to be good between man and Hashem, you have to be good between man to man. They're interlocking, interconnected. You cannot be good bein Adam lachaverei if you're not good bein Adam lamokim. And you cannot be good bein Adam lamokim if you're not good bein Adam lachaverei. So, in other words, but the logic is not a logic. I don't need a Matan Torah to tell me Kabbalah Savicha V'Simecha. The Chiddush of Matan Torah in the mitzvah Kabbalah Savicha V'Simecha, for instance, is you don't keep Kabbalah Savicha V'Simecha because it's logical. We keep it because Anei Hashem Elokecha.
Sounds like the parents go between the two categories, the link between the two categories.
They are. That's what it says. They're the link between both.
It becomes logical, it becomes me, it comes to my mind.
And then
I can relate to it.
you can relate to it. But at the same time, you have to understand that's not why I'm doing it.
You need both.
So you bring it down to
If I would only do mitzvahs because they're logical, when logic dictates differently, I'm not going to do it. How many times do we talk Robin Hood? You ever heard they had in Iran also the guy Robin Hood? Yeah, I thought only in America.
You just steal it.
You just steal. Yeah. In folklore, Robin Hood was a hero. He stole from the rich and gave to the poor. In Torah law, he was a ganef.
And at its time, now they realize that he was just a regular hoodlum again.
They mamish learned the chidushim of, they really delved into a non-existent entity.
No,
That's
they
fine.
found somebody that resembles him, and they say it's probably him, and the sentiment...
He was a Gilgal, and his neshama came down
The
again.
overall sentiment
Let's go.
about him was not... anything-
Let's go weiter. Okay, got it. But here, let's go. Nimtza shamitzah shematzik batam. Therefore, the mitzvah that you don't understand the reason is yesig gavoya mashimasik tam v'tainug. And this that we do understand the reason is only the external aspect of the mitzvah. What do you look at? What do you want?
We're talking about getting you a watch that monitors your heartbeat and how much you walk and everything else. What's that got to do with this?
It's nothing to do with this, like everything else.
It's going to keep track of how many mitzvahs you're
Yeah, but then it's going to keep track of how many times you talk in middle.
You got to get a watch to remind you.
Okay, let's go. Not like the world thinks. The main thing, people think, what's the main mitzvah, the concept of mitzvahs? Enjoying it and understanding it. It's not true. The main part of mitzvah is action. The only reason Hashem allows us to understand it, the only reason why Hashem wants us to have enjoyment at the hour of Nira, because then with the mitzvah has the wings. But you can't have a bird of only wings is not a bird. A bird without wings, we learned, Rebbe quotes in Tanya, who quotes in Yerideh, the Nitla Gapov, if the wings were clipped, the bird's still kosher. It's still a bird. You could shacht it and eat it. Wings without a body is worthless. A body without wings is valuable. Except it can't fly up. But the main thing is the action of the mitzvah. So he says now, Mishnah okay? Mishnah in Kabbalah is called city, and Braisa is called field. Why is Braisa called field? Shows because Lashim Bar, Chutz Le'ir, Braisa means, the literal Aramaic, Braisa means outside. So simply it means it's outside of the Mishnah. When Rabbi Nasi compiled Mishnah, when he didn't put it into the Mishnah, from that era it was called Braisa. The Rabbi and Rabbi and others organized. But Braisa is explaining why is it called Sodom? Because Braisa means outside of the city. So if you stop to think, generally speaking, a city is better than the field. Because the city is where people live. And the city, but he says, but what gives you life, the field or the city? The food we eat is from the field. So even though it appears that the field is lower than the city, but the reality is the field is higher than the city. The same thing, so just like field sustains city, Braisa sustains Mishnah. It explains in more detail the Gemara in Bava Metzia, it says, it quotes it pasuk, a son and whatever, and says, people that rule only from the Mishnah destroy the world. The Gemara says this in Bava Metzia, that Eilam Shemeirim Atanoim Mavle Eilam that destroy the world Shemeirim Mitecha Mishnah. Why? Because when you have to rule halacha and you don't know the reason of the halacha, then you don't know how to apply it. In order to paskin, therefore, there's a big machlekes between Rambam and Rosh, and the Rabbi gets involved in that whole thing. According to the Rambam just says halachas without reasons. Because the Rambam holds you're allowed to paskin from halacha without reasoning. Most of the other Rishonim disagree with the Rambam and say if you don't give the reason, there's most of the Rishonim give the reason for the psak. Why? Because if you can't know the reason, then how can you apply the psak? Maybe it doesn't apply here. Maybe in this case the reason doesn't apply. Now the Rebbe in fact says the Beis Yosef, who Shulchan Aruch also doesn't give reasons, but the Beis Yosef relied on his commentary on the Torah called Beis Yosef, where over there he gives the reasons for the psak. So he relied on that. That's a whole Talmud about it. But there's an Indian, you can't rule from a mission because if you don't know the reason for halacha, just knowing halacha doesn't mean anything. Maybe the halacha doesn't apply here.
The Alter Rebbe Shulchan has the reason.
The Alter Rebbe gives a lot of reasons, Shulchan Aruch.
Always.
Not always, but most of the time.
Always.
What?
Have to always give the halachas.
Not depends. If there's no reason that's going to change the halachas details, you don't have to give the reason. Okay, Bezel vayetzi yitzchol l'sor basada l'ulosh and dibor v'sicha. It says, but l'suach means sicha, talking, right? It also comes the word sicha lashon shchi lamata v'sachre manosh, meaning you bend down also. When it says ben tishim l'suach in Pirkei Avos, suach means also bent over. He says, Besada hi bar. So what does it mean? Vayetze Yitzchak, Lasuach, to bend down in bar in the Braisa, Lifneis Erev before evening, meaning Lifneis Erev acheshach, when it's about to become dark. Meaning, Teira nishtaushel b'cheshach, Teira comes dafkin to cheshach. Like you said at the beginning of the Maamar, Teira comes into lies and thievery and all that stuff. Or like it says, "B'machshakim heshivani" is a Talmud Bavli. There's a pasuk in Eicha that says, "B'machshakim heshivani," that you established me in the darkness. And the Gemara says that's Talmud Bavli. In fact, it's interesting. Whenever there's a machlekes Bavli and Yerushalmi, You paskin like Bavli. Why do you rule like Bavli? So the Gemara says, because it says in the pasuk, "B'machshakim heshivani," in darkness, which is Cheshach Bavel, versus Eretz Yisrael, which is Or. Yeah? But the bottom line is, why do you paskin like Bavli? Because the Yishami is a bunch of statements. Yishami doesn't have discussions and debates, and Bavli is full of discussion and arguments and questions. So then you understand the halacha better through Bavli than you do through Yishami. Yishami says halacha with a statement. Who, what, when, where? When does it apply? How does it apply? If it applies, that's Bavli. And that's the level of Cheshach. That's the level of Braisa, which explains the Mishnah. Why is it like that? The purpose is to transform darkness into light. The whole purpose of creation, like it says at the beginning of creation, it was evening, it was morning, it became one day. So Chassidus is a medrash, but Chassidus explains that first it has to be Erev Cheshach, it has to be night, which is darkness, and then it has to be Baiker morning. When you transform Cheshach into Or, when night is transformed into day, then you have Yom Echad, the revelation of Hashem Echad. So the whole purpose is Vayeta Yitzchak Losua Basada, to go out to the level of Braisa, to lower himself into a lower level of Sada, Lifnei Erev when it's Cheshach, but the purpose is to transform that Cheshach into Or.
But for the most part, you see relatively a lot of darkness, a lot of incongruity, a lot of injustice. You see a lot of beautiful, fine social fabrics that is really laudable, but at the same time you see right next to it a lot of...
The problem is when people decide what's morally or immorally correct based on their understanding.
That's how God created it.
No, He didn't.
Why did God create it?
No, God created us in a way that we shouldn't do that, and that the ultimate morals and ethics of good and bad, let's define it better, good and bad is defined not by humans, it's defined by Hashem. And therefore, if it's defined by Hashem, it doesn't matter what time, it's not relative to time and place. What was immoral, for those of us, like Dr. Dower and myself, the aging people here, what was completely immoral in the 50s is a mitzvah today. Yes or no? Now what changed that? Not Torah. Torah didn't change. Torah says if it was immoral in the 50s, it's immoral in the 2000s. It's people that decided that this is what I like. It's like the Constitution's for the people, by the people. Because it's for the people, by the people, you're allowed to amend the Constitution. One second, let me finish. You can amend, you can change the Constitution because what was good in 1776 is not necessarily good today. Or people decide it's not good today. Torah, you can't amend Torah. Torah was written by God, for God. And there ain't no changes. Now what do you want?
So why is it it's beautiful that God exposed us, fortunate to at least have avenue to that? But why is it that the rest of the world is really are deprived of it? For the most part, except where Jews were somewhat had exposure, or the people were exposed to.
What's the ultimate in creation? Humans? Yes? Is there more animals in the world or humans in the world? Animals. What's that? I'm being out of...
Growing power between...
Is there more? No. Is there more? No. No. Is there more vegetation in the world than animals? Is there more inanimate in the world than animals? If it's more important, there should be more. The answer is because a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. And therefore, yes, mankind is the lowest, but mankind is the ultimate purpose of creation. Mankind's goal and mission for everybody in the world, Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Nerech, is to civilize the world, and the Jews have made Torah Mitzvahs to bring Kedusha into the world. Nobody's putting anybody down. It's a different role. The role of animals is different.
But